So welcome to the September 3rd, 2020 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. This is a virtual meeting. So multiple staff members are behind the scenes to make sure that all applicants and citizens are able to communicate with the board at the appropriate times.
Board members and applicants are participating via Zoom. Some are using video and all are using audio. I will unmute applicants or ask them to unmute themselves when their case is called, but please stay muted until it is your case so we can avoid any background noise. And just be mindful of anything in the background of your video if you do turn video on during your case, and just any audio issues as well. The public may participate in a number of ways. They can watch via City TV, which you can access from the main page of the city website, by emailing us letters or statements, by phone, and by logging into publicinput.com. The public can stream at youtube.com/user/columbiasc.government. But again, there's also the red ticker at the top of the City of Columbia web page will take you to the YouTube video. Email, you can submit letters and statements to cocboardmeeting@columbiasc.gov. There's a staff member checking that email leading up to and during the meeting up until the time it goes into board discussion. When received, we will read those letters into the record. And by phone, this is what has changed. So the call-in number, the 1-855-925-2801, that stays the same no matter what. There was a glitch with the website and it did change our meeting code. So for anyone who is listening, please hang up and call back. Because I know some people had called the 8787. Please hang up and call back at 1-855-925-2801. And when it prompts you for your meeting code, enter 8957. That'll give you the option to stay on the line and listen, to leave a message, or to enter into a speaking queue. So just one more time, just because I apologize that there was this glitch. If you called the initial number that went out, please hang up and call 1-855-925-2801. And when it asks you for the meeting code, enter 8957. So, and again, after you do the 8957, you can do *1, which allows you to listen to the meeting. *2 allows you to record a voice message that'll be read into the record. If you use that option, just make sure to speak clearly and leave your name and which case you're calling on. And when your case gets called, you can hit *3. And that places you in the speaker queue. It shows staff a little raised hand, and that way we know you want to speak on that particular case. But again, just please make sure to wait until your case is called so we unmute you at the correct time. You can also stream at publicinput.com/cocboza-sept. So, and just please make sure if you're participating by phone while also streaming the meeting on your computer, just mute the audio on your computer and use your phone audio just so we don't have playback issues when we patch you in to speak to the board. And there's also an audio delay between Zoom and the live recording on City TV. So if you notice that we are pausing at certain times, it's just to allow that audio to catch up so that citizens know when to submit their comments or to hit *3. So, and I'll go ahead and do roll call. Mr. Sally?
Here.
Jenkins?
Here.
Mr. Primus? He's here. He's just muted.
Here.
Ms. Stevens? Is she here? I do not see her. Mr. Schaefer?
Here.
Mr. Gregory?
Here.
All right, I know Mr. Speed was going to be absent. We have a quorum. All right, Chuck.
Yes. Applicants with requests before the Board of Zoning Appeals are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time should include, but is not limited to, an overview of the project, case history, and any pertinent meetings held regarding the request. This time also includes all persons presenting information on behalf of the applicant, such as attorneys, engineers, and architects. This time limit does not include any questions asked by the Board of Zoning Appeals or staff regarding the request. Any member of the general public may address the board in intervals of 3 minutes or 5 minutes by a spokesperson of established body of 3 or more people. The applicant will then have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The board reserves the right to amend these procedures on a case-by-case basis. The board uses the consent agenda to approve non-controversial or routine matters by single motion and vote. I'm sorry, Rachel, I kind of picked on you on that. Go ahead.
You stole my lines. If a member of the board or the general public wishes to discuss an item on the consent agenda, that item is removed and then placed on the regular. The board then approves the remaining consent agenda items. So we will review the consent agenda. We have the approval of the August 6th, 2020 minutes. And then we have item number 2, which is case 2020-0043, a special exception at 5701 Seabury Street. This is a special exception to permit a barber shop as an accessory use to a single family residence. This would be as a home occupation. So we don't see many of these, but just home occupation, beauty salons and barber shops just require a special exception. And item number 3 is the same request for a different address. It's 2020-0045, a special exception at 6 Hampton Wood Court. This is a special exception to permit a beauty shop as an accessory use to a single family residence. Again, just as a home occupation. So, and those are the items on the consent agenda. If anyone wishes to have it removed prior to the board vote, just let us know. We will pause and see if anything comes in via public input or the email address.
Okay, just to be clear, we are getting ready to vote on the request at 5701 Seabury Street and 6 Hampton Wood Court. If anybody doesn't want those to be on the consent agenda, they need to let staff know now. Anybody on the board want anything removed from the consent agenda? I don't hear that. Anybody? So I will entertain a motion then.
Just wait 1 second, Chuck. Let me just see if I can hear from Erica and Andrew first to see if there's anybody on the phone. We might be delayed in audio a little bit. Erica or Andrew? Erica or Andrew? Are you guys there?
Hi, this is Erica Hammond in the clerk.
Yes.
This is Erica Hammond in the clerk's office. I'm not sure what's happening with Andrew, and so I'm in public input, and I don't see anyone who has their hand raised. And I apologize. Someone just raised their hand. They're calling from a 369 number. If you'd like at this time, I can unmute the caller.
Thank you, Erica.
You're welcome.
Hello?
Hi, how are you? Are you calling about one of our consent agenda items?
No, I'm actually one of the applicants, and I was confused about if I should press *3 to be able to speak, or if I should just press *1 just to listen.
Are you for Seabury Street?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yes, yeah, *1 would have been good, but that's no problem.
Okay.
So we will get you back muted just so you can listen to the audio. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Let's go ahead and get going then. I would like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, and which in the two items on the consent agenda that they be subject to all staff comments and also to the home occupation ordinance of the City of Columbia.
Second.
You got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
Motion passes. All right, we'll move on to our regular agenda. All right, we're going to use the following outline for regular agenda items. Staff will introduce the case. Applicant will be given 10 minutes to make a presentation. During that time and after, the board may ask questions. The public will then be allowed to participate via email, voicemail, or by phone comment. An applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal and action by the board. I do just want to reiterate that if there are members of the public who wish to speak, call 855-925-2801. And when prompted, please make sure to use the meeting code 8957. The first item on the regular agenda is case 2020-0040. This is a special exception at 2022, 2034, and 2040 Marion Street, 1408, 1414, and 1420 Elmwood Avenue, in 2019 Bull Street. This is a special exception to establish a gasoline service station and a convenience store. We'll hear both cases together, but it will require 2 separate votes by the board. If the applicant is present, they're welcome to unmute themselves and start their presentation to the board.
You guys see me?
We can hear you.
Yep. Okay, my name is Drew English, and I'm a lawyer here in town with Callison, Ty, and Robinson. And I'm pleased to represent Murphy Oil USA, Inc. in their application for a special exception to the zoning ordinance. And thank you to Chairman Sally and the members of the board for your kindness in taking up this application. As Rachel mentioned, we're at the southeastern corner of the Marion Street, Elmwood Avenue block. Presently, this site consists of 7 lots. There's 6 buildings on those lots. The idea is to purchase the property and demolish the existing buildings and develop a convenience store with gas there. The internal lot lines of the existing parcels will be abandoned, and 1 single tax parcel will result. Representatives of Murphy have communicated with Rachel's staff and various community neighborhood leaders regarding this application. I know our time is limited. We have two representatives from Murphy on the call with us. Tyler Brandt is the Director of Real Estate, and Wayne Gibson is the Director of Property Management. And they'll be happy to go through the application. They have a PowerPoint presentation I think Rachel has received. They're going to touch on the special exception criteria along with the good neighbor plan.
Okay.
To answer any questions. So this time I'd like to introduce Tyler Brandt with Murphy. Tyler, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. And I see the looks like your first slide of your PowerPoint presentation.
That's correct. And thank you, Drew, and thank you to the board and for hearing our application today. My name is Tyler Brandt. I'm the Director of Real Estate for Murphy on the East Coast. I reside in the Carolinas, and I'd like to draw attention that Murphy operates in 25 states, 60 stores in South Carolina. 12 of those are in Columbia. We are 100% corporately owned and operated, and we've been building fuel stations since 1996. One of our big philanthropy events is with the Boys and Girls Club of America. And then with our employees, we have extensive employee training for sales of age-restricted products and up to 32 security cameras on site. And then from an environmental standpoint, we meet all state and federal requirements for fuel sales and storage. And Rachel, would you mind moving to the next slide, please? Thank you. So as part of our good neighbor plan, there's 5 critical components of that. The first is loitering. Murphy does not tolerate any loitering on our site. If we do see an issue arise, our associates will address it. And if it needs to be escalated with the local law enforcement, we will do that. Litter, as part of our daily operations, our associates are trained to walk the store and the grounds and pick up litter. There will be trash receptacles at every pump. So we'll have 10 pumps, so 10 trash receptacles, 1 at the entrance to the store, and then a few on the interior of the building. From a signage standpoint, Murphy will meet all permanent or temporary signage on the development. And then from crime prevention, we will maintain a great relationship with the local law enforcement. We encourage them to come to our site. We'll get to know them by name. We can even provide them with free coffee and donuts if they're willing to come sit on our property and do any type of paperwork. We will develop that relationship. And then finally, our neighborhood communication, our operations employees, we can share their contact information, store managers, division managers. So if there are issues that arise, you know who you can call. You're not calling an 800 number with a corporate entity. There's an individual who will answer the phone. Will you please go to the next slide? So as far as our special exception criteria, there's 8 components of it, and I'm not going to run through every item in detail given the limited time here, but I do want to draw attention just to a couple. Certainly traffic is a concern. We understand that. According to SCDOT's website, there is roughly around 80,000 cars per day at the intersection of Bull and Elmwood. And contrary to popular belief, gas stations don't increase traffic. We're merely there, and we want to develop at these corners because the traffic exists today, and we want to feed off of that because that's the nature of our business. It's convenient in nature. From an environmental standpoint, we will meet all state and federal requirements, and we'll have the litter control program in place. With the downtown area, we understand there's aesthetic qualities that are important to the neighborhood, and we will meet that. We will design our building to adhere to the city center design guidelines, and we'll have a brick facade, and it will be tailored. It will fit the downtown historic design. And I'll show you a rendering here in a couple minutes so you can see what I'm talking about. And then finally, our use will not adversely affect the public. We're looking to be stewards of the community. We want to invest in the Columbia market. I checked with our tax department before this, and it's estimated that we will generate around $125,000 of sales tax revenue annually, in addition to around $25,000 of property tax. So that's a huge investment in the community for the city and the county. Next slide, please. Here's a site overview. It's roughly 1.7 acres. Murphy is proposing a 2,800 square foot building with 10 MPDs with a right-in, right-out access off Elmwood, and then right-in, right-out off Bull, and then full movement that's existing today on Marion. Next. Here's an overview of our site plan, which shows our convenience store up on the corner of Marion and Elmwood with the 10 pumps facing internal to the site. Next slide, please. So I want to draw your attention to this screen. This is a base rendering of a prototypical Murphy Express store. You can see the colors, the price signs. This is a base rendering. And what we're committing to do is to meet the guidelines of the city center overlay district. And so if you move to the next slide, you'll see a proposal of an enhanced rendering of a brick facade, historic in design, brick on the columns. This will be a really good looking store. The monument sign will have a brick surround. We'll have pedestrian friendly entrances and connectivity and enhanced landscaping. And then finally, I'd like to just summarize this here by drawing your attention to this rendering. And also, Murphy USA is a responsible operator. We are corporately owned and operated. We are not a franchisee. We have standards and policies in place, and we believe that we will be a great investment and steward in this community at this location in the downtown area. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. Could you go back to the site plan real quick? I just wanted to look at the, you're proposing a right in, right out on Elmwood Avenue, and a right in, right out on Bull Street. Is that right? Is that what I'm seeing there?
Yes, that's correct.
Gotcha. So then it'll just be a normal two-way entrance coming off of Marion Street, where that existing driveway is now.
Correct. Where the existing driveway is now, there's no median on Marion Street, so we're proposing just that as is.
And I guess this means that the No Name Deli is closed, huh? Did they move it somewhere, please?
Well, I'd like to introduce, I'm happy to answer any more questions, but we have some other folks who would like to make some comments here.
Sure.
They can maybe speak to that.
Yes, William Stroud is an attorney, and he represents Brownstein Associates. They're one of the landowners, the two landowners. William, are you on the line?
I am on the line.
Okay. Do you have your comments, please?
Yes, I do. So this property has been in the Brownstein's family for more than 6 decades. The property was initially purchased by my client's father prior to its current ownership by an entity controlled by his daughters. Throughout their lengthy ownership of the property, the family has been a faithful steward of the greater Columbia community. The property was originally configured for office space and as well for automotive glass and plastic services. However, this use is no longer the optimum use of the property due to the increased urbanization of downtown Columbia, which has changed the character of the area and resulted in an influx of new professional spaces and buildings. Consequently, the family has been looking for a suitable purchaser who would help realize Marvin Brownstein's vision of consolidating the block while also ensuring the property would continue to serve the community in which my clients are lifelong members. After several bids on the property, the family ultimately chose to engage with Murphy USA, a Fortune 500 company, because of its strong guiding principles and long track record of corporate responsibility. Murphy USA is dedicated to serving every community in which a Murphy Express convenience store and fuel station is located. Murphy USA's proposed use would exponentially benefit the neighborhood as well as the greater Columbia community. A Murphy Express in this location would mitigate, not increase, the issues that have been a concern for the surrounding neighborhoods. Instead, it would enhance visibility from the street by providing round-the-clock lighting for the property, which in turn will significantly contribute to the livability of the area. Murphy USA is also committed to preventing loitering and follows a strict no loitering policy. In this regard, Murphy USA engages with local law enforcement to ensure the safety and well-being of all its customers as well as the community at large. Finally, Murphy USA is committed to working with the community, including the Yellow Shirts program, and as Tyler mentioned before, Murphy USA sponsors local community events such as youth sporting events, specifically with the Boys and Girls Club of America. In closing, Murphy USA is committed to fully integrating into the surrounding community as a good neighbor.
Thank you, William. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, we have Bob Fuller. Bob's the attorney here in town, and he represents Glenn and Laura Kabulis, who are the owners of the No Name Deli. Bob, can you hear us?
And before Mr. Fuller chats with us, Mr. Sally, they have about 5 seconds left of their.
All right, let's give them an extension. I want to hear this.
Okay. All right, I can do that for sure.
Bob, are you there? Rachel, I know Bob was he on the telephone earlier?
Is muted.
Well, if Bob was if Bob was with us, he would certainly voice his client's support for this project. Everybody knows the No Name Deli is an institution here in Columbia.
Am I now on? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, my technology couldn't unmute myself. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your earlier remark, and I can address that a little bit. I do represent Glenn and Laura Kabulis, who operate the No Name Deli. And they built an institution in this area of Columbia in the No Name, but that time has run and they are retiring, and they have got to leave the property. They have tried diligently to pass the business on, but the mission has not been financially successful. Neither the employees nor other independent operators have been able to afford the price or the risk of operating a standalone restaurant at that location. I can tell you they are assisting some of the employees in finding a relocation site for a continuation of the business, and hopefully that will transpire in the near future. The only serious and qualified buyers with interest in this property corner are looking for exactly what has drawn Murphy to the site, and that is the already existing high traffic volume. That is a concern to some neighborhoods, but as has been mentioned by the company, they don't create traffic, they utilize what is there. National and retail fuel sellers are of convenience store services and convenience products are the only consistent market for the property because of that traffic count. The Kabulis family has not been able to entertain offers from anybody other than people in that particular business. Murphy is a high volume retailer and is the perfect sort of buyer for this site because they are an industry leader in the only type of business that is willing to come to these sort of locations. Murphy has developed an excellent project plan, has the capability and the experience to maintain it. It has provided the city verifiable assurances of stability and market knowledge. And this special exception is deserving of approval as a win for Murphy, for the city, and for the neighborhoods. We'll appreciate your support for putting it in place and allowing this to continue as it needs. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Okay. Any other questions from board before we go to public comment?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions for either the applicant or the applicant's attorney. First one is the easiest one. First question for either, I guess, for Tyler or Drew. we haven't talked much about this today. I know as we've spoken, the Nam Deli is on the corner of Marion and Elmwood. What are the other structures on the other 5 or 6 parcels currently being used for, or what is the deal with the other structures? I'm not that familiar with the structures off of the main roads there.
This is Tyler. I'll take that on. There's a variety of uses. I believe that a couple of the buildings do sit vacant. Obviously, the No Name Deli. And then the exact operations, I'm not too familiar with the tenants that are in there. I know that there's some auto parts services of some capacity, but it's just a conglomerate of roughly around 6 or 7 buildings that we would clean up and create a well-lit development with sight lines to the street and landscaping. And as far as the specifics of the tenants that are in there, I can't speak exactly to that. I maybe even defer to.
That's okay. It was really more a curiosity question. Again, as I've traveled that area many times, I've sort of stuck to Elmwood and Bull, and I was just wondering what was back there, but I'm okay with that. But question really of more substance, because I have a feeling some of the opposition in the area is going to ask this. So I guess we're sort of looking as a board member for ammunition as we run through these specific criteria. Specific criteria number 5 regarding the establishment of the special exception for these properties and whether or not it would create a proliferation of similar type uses in the area. I'm just sort of thinking forward. I see that as a potential hang up or a potential question. What can you tell us about, I guess, what would be your answer as to why with several of these stores in the area, and I believe a convenience store immediately adjacent to this parcel on the corner, what is some ammunition for us as the board that Murphy would not be creating a proliferation of these types of uses in the area?
Sure. This is Tyler. I'll take that question. I can certainly understand the existing uses that are in close proximity. As far as general convenience store development, it's no secret that sometimes at major intersections, you'll see multiple convenience stores and they're feeding off and tapping into different traffic patterns. And in this situation, we believe our offering is going to be superior to those of our competitors. And we're going to raise the bar and set the standard of what a fantastic looking convenience store can look like in this market. We will keep the property clean, maintained, and it's going to fit in with the overall design elements of downtown, including the redevelopment of Bull Street across the district across Bull Street. But I understand that the proximity is there, but it's normal in our industry to have multiple competitors at an intersection.
So in other words, I guess another way to put it, Tyler, sort of leading you, but asking this honestly, if the demand is there for another use, even though you have an adjacent use of a similar type, I guess it's not really a proliferation because the demand is there. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree. There is enough demand there to support the addition of another convenience store of our operation.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I think that's a good answer. I can believe that would be a question that we're going to get asked. So I appreciate you expanding upon that answer for us. Thank you.
Sure. My pleasure.
Any other questions? Okay. Rachel, can we move to public comment, please?
Sure. If Erica or Andrew are on the line, please let us know if there's any new letters or people on the phone waiting to speak.
Rachel?
Yes.
We have 3 callers at this time.
Okay.
My name is Elizabeth Marks. Good afternoon. I am Vice Chairman of the Coalition of Downtown Neighborhoods, which covers the 7 neighborhoods that encircle the proposed gas station. I think if you read my letter, I won't go into the listing the neighborhoods, but virtually all of them have historic designations or are considered to be landmark districts. This gas station back up to National Register Landmark District number 2, which is approximately 200 properties that are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. While the development of the gas stations on Elmwood has been a concern to us in the past, it has certainly become an ongoing and significant problem for the adjacent property owners and neighborhoods. I think we need to first talk about number 5, which is the idea that the concentration or proliferation is somehow not a problem here. It actually is. In my letter, I also included the crime report for Elmwood and how many of those crimes actually relate to other gas stations. Let me say that each of them have also told us in the past that they would not allow loitering, drug dealing, alcohol, or prostitution on their site. They comply with that to varying degrees. However, we see a 5th gas station in 4 blocks as not just excessive, but damaging to the character of the area. The people that they move off of the gas station property actually just simply find a building or a neighborhood or a yard to conduct their business in. So moving people off of their property moves them onto our property. And the idea that we would have a 5th beer and wine license on that street is ridiculous. We are basically creating a beer and wine buffet on Elmwood that cannot possibly be good for the neighboring properties or increase property values surrounding this. We understand that this is going to be the Disneyland of gas stations. However, a large gas station is also going to increase noise, light, glare, fumes, and odors, backing up not only against the historic district, but the other neighborhoods as well. So there is, I know that we've talked with Murphy that they say that that's not going to be a problem, but that just simply isn't our experience. We've dealt with 4 other gas stations. It's just not something that they can guarantee. The proposed special exemption is not consistent with the character and intent of the underlying district. I've already spoken to that. It's in my letter. You back up against a National Register historic district that goes back to 1977. All the other neighborhoods surrounding it are historic. This is not consistent with the character of the area that is developing. This would be retroactive. It would take us backwards instead of going forward. This is not the highest and best use of that land. We do thank Murphy for being available to talk with us about this. We did extensive research on it. We talked to a number of real estate agents. This is going to be a long-term problem. Murphy may not be there forever, but that gas station property, once it puts in its tanks, becomes a potential cleanup site. And we have had numerous real estate agents tell us that people will shy away from that property if it is ever closed. And once it leaves Murphy's hand, as the other gas stations have changed hands many times, we have no idea what they will leave behind or who will come behind them. So we do not believe that number 7, that the proposed exception is appropriate for the location. We don't think it's compatible to the neighborhoods or the historic districts. And we do think it adversely affects the public interest. Thank you. And also we want to say thank you to Murphy. They were absolutely available. This isn't to say that they are not responsible. It's to say that this is the wrong product for the wrong site. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Vince McCarron. I'm president of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, which is just adjacent to the Robert Mills. Obviously, hi, Elizabeth, and thank you for that. Y'all got our letter as well from the neighborhood as well, so I won't dig too deep into the details and specifics of each and every one of our little complaints. But we have about 1,300 residents, including students like myself, you know, from undergrad all the way up to master's programs who work and live here in the city. We have apartment renters, and we have obviously the owners of historic buildings, condos, businesses, who have collectively kind of come together to understand that there does need to be changes to the city. There does need to be development and improvements to the areas that aren't quite functioning the way they're meant to be done or meant to be left. And this area that we're talking about is one of those. But putting another gas station with a convenience store is just absolutely the incorrect method of achieving that kind of development and progress that we're looking for. We are putting in you know, great things like the Bull Street District, you know, putting in, you know, plenty of corporate businesses. And, you know, first off, I want to thank that, you know, y'all for letting me, you know, speak on this, and, you know, participate in this meeting. And I obviously want to thank the, you know, attorneys of, you know, the previous stewards of, you know, this area that, you know, really did make it great. But there's, you know, an opportunity here to, you know, bring Columbia up to the standards that we want it to be. And in not only, you know, fix things, but improve upon those opportunities. And this being one of them. Obviously, we discussed the, you know, crime statistics, and, you know, as someone who lives, you know, right on Main Street, you know, driving around, biking around this area every day, it's not the lack of opportunity that I'm not going to one of those gas stations on, you know, Elmwood, because there's, you know, they're corporately owned or they're not taken care of. You know, that's just not what it is. They're, you know, it's a cause for problems and an increase in, you know, the underlying issues surrounding the Main Street District, and to allow that precedent in an area that we're, you know, working to improve tourism, we're working to improve our, you know, outward image. This just does not meet that bill. So I'll repeat myself once more from my letter. You know, I do hope that you reject you know, as does the collective, you know, voting group here that lives here and works here. You know, we can see a benefit to an improvement in this area, but the project proposed here and what is up for, you know, vote today is just not up to par. So thank y'all.
Hello, this is Will Thrift with the Cottontown Neighborhood Association. I'm the president there. I want to say I appreciate the Murphy's Oil reps conducting a meeting with the neighborhoods to talk about our concerns. We voiced our concerns to them. And I represent Cottontown, which is directly across Elmwood Avenue from this proposal. Cottontown has 380 plus addresses. And I can tell you, after the board discussed it, all members of the board unanimously agreed to oppose this proposal. And I have not heard anyone in Cottontown that wants to have the Murphy Oil gas station located there. I've heard several individuals that don't. And the reasons that Cottontown came up with our opposition to this is under the criteria for special exceptions, number 4, that it would have a substantial adverse impact on public safety or create nuisance conditions detrimental to the public interest. The condition of this area is that there are many pedestrian people that roam around the area. You might call them homeless. They may or may not be. But that is the condition of this section of Elmwood. And what's happened with the other 5 convenience stores that are located in proximity to this proposal is that these people will go and buy, lottery tickets, alcohol, cigarettes, food items, that kind of thing, and then go out into the neighborhood to consume those items. That is a condition that persists, and we think that this Murphy Oil proposal will do nothing but perpetuate that condition. And the other, and that goes along with the criteria number 8, which is it will adversely affect the public interest. And our interest is to develop this area of town such that it enhances the quality of life for people that live there. And we don't think that Murphy Oil located at this location is going to do that. I appreciate the Board of Zoning Appeals considering this, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak against it. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
That is all the callers with their hands raised. No more comments.
Okay, did you receive any, did any emails come through, Erica?
I have got no emails.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So we're going to have the applicant come back in for some rebuttal.
This is Drew English. We and Murphy, Murphy is certainly, and Tyler and I have talked about this at great length, understand the concerns of the community and the neighborhoods. It's right that they are concerned about the best interests of where they live and where they work. The issue of loitering specifically, my office is, I'm just up the street on Arsenal Hill, right across from the governor's mansion. And so I've seen it. But Murphy is not, that problem exists now. It's already here. And nothing Murphy has done or will do is going to make that problem worse. In fact, I think if you study the plan, the site plan, if we can go to the site plan, I'd like to look at two slides. One is the site plan, and then that overlay. Yeah. Okay, so if you look at the density of the buildings now, what you have is 7 buildings that are kind of randomly oriented on these 6 lots. A couple of them I think are vacant now. Soon enough, more or all of them will be vacant. And if you have loitering from some of if you have some pedestrian traffic from some of the neighboring parcels, there's lots of places that are out of the public eye, behind those buildings, in between those buildings, and that's a situation that exists now, and would not change. If you look at the Murphy site plan, you're going to have a much more open space. This is a large parcel of land. This will be a large parcel of land for a convenience store and gas station. There's going to be wide viewing angles. It's going to be well lit, and I think what the reality of the situation is going to be is that you're going to have a discouragement of a lot of the activity that everybody is concerned about, because it's not going to be easy places to hide. There's not going to be places to go and have a beer and discard it, because it's going to be patrolled. It's going to be, no loitering is going to be enforced. And so I think from that standpoint, and it's going to be well landscaped, it's going to be attractive, and it's going to be an improvement. And so while we certainly understand the concern, this is an intersection that gets 80,000 cars a day. And Bobby Fuller aptly said, we do believe this is the highest and best use. This is a high traffic area, and this development will be an enhancement to the area. I think Murphy is not here for the short term. Nobody can predict the future, but Murphy is here. They're corporate. They have a well-oiled machine. It's not going to be a situation where you have an independent operator, and they're here to be a good steward of the area, be a good neighbor, and I can tell you, they would not make the investment that they're planning to make if they weren't intending to do all of those things. Tyler or Wayne have anything to add to that? I'm not sure how much time we have left.
Yes, this is Tyler Brandt. I do have a couple of comments there, and I appreciate everyone's concerns and speaking up and voicing in. And you're right, we had great, fantastic, productive conversations when we were able to think up and chat about this development. Well, one item that I do want to note here from an environmental standpoint, our tanks and piping are double insulated, and there's a space of air in between those layers where we have sensors, and if any type of issue occurs, our store is notified and our home office in Arkansas is notified, and it gets shut down, and we will figure out what we need to do to correct any type of issues that arise. It's likely that there could be some contamination on this site right now, and you're right. A lot of people, sometimes developers, other retailers, might get scared of that. But you have to understand is what we do with our core business model. We understand the nature of contamination, and we have experts on staff who understand and know how to clean up any type of existing contamination that's there. And that's one important point to note, is we're not scared of that, and we would be cleaning up any type of issues that would be there today. Murphy is also purchasing this land. We're not in a tenant relationship, so we don't have a sunset on a lease term. We're investing here for the long run. So just note that we want to be a member of the community. And then from a public safety standpoint, I think Drew hit on that very well. We're going to clean up this site. We're going to eliminate buildings. We're going to eliminate hiding spots for unacceptable activity. We want to make an investment in the community, and we surely would appreciate the approval tonight. Thank you.
Thanks. Rachel, would you put the screen back on the rendering of the proposed development? So I guess this is for Tyler, but I have a question. I'm assuming that you are committing to build this, as it's shown here with the brick, all the way around the columns and the smaller signage and everything on the canopy as well as on the building.
So as part of the permitting and entitlement process, we'll need to go through the design review board, which would occur after this meeting. What you see here will be a close resemblance. There could be some other architectural elements that change, but yes, the building will be a brick facade. We can incorporate brick on the columns like you see here.
Right. And you would be using the smaller signage design as well.
Yes, my understanding is we will adhere to the city center guidelines and meet those as far as everything that we need to do from a signage standpoint. Yes.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Do you mean for the applicant or in terms of discussion?
Well, for the applicant, and if we don't, then I think it's time to move into discussion at this point. Are you? Is everybody ready to move into discussion now?
Yes.
Okay.
I also just wanted to let everybody know Miss Stevens joined us early on in this case. So just wanted to let everybody know that she's on and will be taking part.
Sorry, everybody. I could hear for a while, but I'm just now, my internet's bad. I'm here now.
Okay. Welcome, Jenna. So, you know, I think I understand this from a opposition standpoint. Yet I'm very familiar with that block. I've been going there for lunch for 40 years, and I know that you know I used to you know lease an office building that's right next door to this as a you know an agent for the owner, and I sold the property across the street from it as well. It used to be I think it was a Cameron Barclay distribution facility at one time back in the day, and so you know that nothing has changed on those metal buildings. And no, I'm not criticizing the Bernsteins, but you know those buildings have long lived through their useful life, and there is nothing historic about them in any way, shape, or form. And it is a very, the way they're shaped and the alleys and everything in that block are a nuisance at this point right now. And you know, when you say talk about the peripheration, I can say this: there's a gas station at the corner of Elmwood and Bull. I wouldn't stop there. I wouldn't get out of my car and go to pump gas at that station. And you know that there's a couple of other ones on Elmwood that I probably wouldn't go to either. And so I don't think it's fair to categorize this development by a you know a Fortune 500 operator and owner of you know these stations across the country as the same as what's existing there now. I don't think it's fair to categorize them in that same category. They're certainly not anything. You know, I would feel very comfortable pulling into this development to get gas. You know, like I said, I wouldn't go to the one. I wouldn't stop at the one next to it. So, in the way they've got the traffic design, it really is a really good design for this block as far as being able to get in and out and not create issues that are existing there right now. So I just want to say that it's easy to lump these all together, but I think this is different than what we see on Elmwood right now, and that's all I wanted.
Okay, so I'll go because I want to speak to that. I think criteria number 5, the concentration and proliferation clause, is a disqualifier for this particular application. And I'll tell you why. So in October of last year, we denied a special exception for a gas station and convenience store based on this criteria on Farrar Road. And in that particular case, what we were told is that there were 2 other gas stations and convenience stores within 7/10 of a mile of the site where the applicant was proposing to adaptively reuse an existing gas station and convenience store. We didn't ask them if they were the same quality gas stations, and we certainly didn't have a conversation about whether or not there was enough demand to justify it. But the common sense in that case indicated that a 3rd gas station within that radius was too much. Now, in this case, within 0.6 of a mile or 7 city blocks, this would be the 6th convenience store and 5th gas station. I don't see how the same board that voted the case down in October using this very criteria can approve this case saying that this criteria does not disqualify this case. It's common sense.
So we're stuck with these crappy gas stations that nobody wants to go to, and we can't have a good brand new one that's professionally run and well managed. We got to stick with the ones that we have, because they put this up, about half of those gas stations will probably end up going away.
Well, we can't predict that, and the criteria number 5 doesn't ask us to make judgments about whether or not this is a better use. It's asking us specifically to say, relative only to use, are there too many of them within proximity of this site? And the answer is yes. Common sense, there's no way you can justify it based on this criteria.
Well, I don't see any of them that are on a 1.7 acre site with 3 egress and ingress easements onto 3 different roads.
That's irrelevant. It doesn't ask us to say, are they the same design? It's asking us related specifically to the use. And in this case, it's a gas station and a convenience store. Does this addition within a reasonable distance from the site create a proliferation and concentration? This is the 6th within 7 blocks convenience store and the 5th gas station within 7 blocks.
Hi, it's Jenna. I'm with George. I agree. That was the criteria that hung me up. Everything else is irrelevant. It is absolutely a proliferation.
As a board, we can't say, well, this is a really good plan, and it probably does improve the site relative to what's already there. And maybe the demand is there, but we're going to ignore one of the criteria because of those factors.
Well, I mean, I think George, respectfully though, I do think that you've got to look at the market for it and the amount of traffic for it. I mean, this is the primary goal here is not, I mean, it's going to be to sell gas. Whereas I think the primary goal for these other ones are to try to sell beer and wine, and tobacco. And so, I just can't put, the fact that you've got, I think Gene alluded to it earlier. I mean, that is that, it'd be one thing if, you didn't have the amount of traffic that you have at this location, that is basically transient traffic, not local traffic, that is looking to stop in for this type of use. Either leaving town or coming into town. And, I just, that's my feeling about it. I mean, it'd be one thing if it was, if this was the same type use that's been I just believe that the fact that the what they're doing with the site and what they're making here is actually going to end up reducing the number of stores down in the future here.
Well, that
would you go to the corner if that was there? I mean, let's face it. Would you even go to this business on the corner of Bull and Elmwood? Would anybody go there?
As a board, we're not in the prediction business. And we're also not in the business of making judgments based on demand. That's not what's asked of us. Because, and furthermore, no subjectively or objectively agreed upon evidence about demand has been presented. That I can even make a judgment about that. I can't make a judgment about demand. I'm not an expert in that, and we're not asked to do that. A gas station is a gas station, and a convenience store is a convenience store. It's use, period.
Well, that's where I disagree, but you know.
Well, you voted the exact opposite way less than a year ago.
Well, you know, you can't say as a precedent that everything that we're going to vote on is exactly going to be the same in every situation for the rest of the. That just doesn't happen. You can go back 20 years. I mean, there's different. You know, there's the criteria has been different for each special situation. You can't just say, you know, well, there's a, you know, because we voted no because there were 4 within 0.7 of a mile as opposed to you know 5 and 0.6 of a mile. I mean, I just don't believe that the board you know can say that that's a precedent and that we have to vote. I mean, why did they even bother to make this presentation? I mean, why don't we just say no, you can't do it because we've already voted and y'all have there's 4 more around there. The reason why is because it's still based on the presentation of what's being presented, how it is, and what's different between it and the other uses in the area. And this, there is a big difference, I think, between this use and every other. Well, there may be one good facility on Elmwood right now. The rest of them, I don't think anybody would want to go to if they had a choice.
Well, I'm not suggesting that precedent means that we have to vote the same way, but I am suggesting that concentration and proliferation mean the same thing for every case. Period. Those aren't squishy terms. And use means the same thing for every case.
Understood. Is there any other comments or commentary?
I'm torn here, probably more so than I've been in a long time. I actually do not. I don't understand the surrounding neighborhoods and the neighborhood association's concerns and comments regarding how this would negatively impact their communities. I don't get that. I think the applicant's testimony and the applicant's attorney's testimony about how much the new site plan would improve this large parcel and avoid all these hiding spots behind these dilapidated structures, if they are dilapidated structures. I think that a nice, clean, really well-run organization, a gas station in this location is a benefit for this whole area. I really believe that, and I don't understand their opposition to it. But, you know, I've always looked at these criteria, and at the same time in this situation, as I sit here and I listen to George's well thought out comments and your rebuttal, Chuck, I'm listening to both of you carefully. I've sort of black and white in some of these situations, and you go down to number 5, and I'm starting to. So the question is, can we say that by granting a special exception here for another gas station and convenience store, the question is, does that create a proliferation of similar type uses? And as much as I hate to say it, because I think this is a benefit for everyone, what better spot for a gas station? I don't know how we can vote. I don't know how we can say it doesn't. I mean, I get it, Chuck. I hear you. You're right. I mean, I wouldn't stop at that corner store to save my life, but there are 5 or 6 in this stretch. And I mean, you know, we're trying to judge these criteria 1 through 8. Does it meet it or not? And I'm kind of starting to, you know, George's testimony, I think, is a strong one and compelling. And I guess I say, regretfully, I'm starting to believe, I kind of think it does, honestly. I kind of think number 5 sinks you here. And I hate that, because I do not think the current state of this property is in good shape. And I think this gas station is the highest use. And I think it's perfect for this area, but I've always sort of been black and white about these criteria. And I don't know how I can look someone in the eye and tell them that if there's a gas station next door and there's 5 more down the street, that it doesn't create a proliferation. So that's kind of where I am with this. I'm honestly, that is as 50-50 as I've ever been on a case. I mean, I don't understand the opposition to this. This is a professional organization, a great presentation. I mean, what would be a better use for here? It seems like they'd be begging for this thing to come in here and clean this area up. But listening to George talk about item number 5, I kind of agree with him. I don't know how we don't. So,
well, I mean, good luck, y'all. We're gonna be stuck here for a long time with a crappy piece of property. Even that guy on the corner in business too.
I don't disagree, Chuck. That's why I'm so regretfully torn here. I mean, I don't disagree. I think we should welcome Murphy USA to the site. But we got that pesky number 5 right there that, I mean, how do we say it doesn't create a proliferation when there's one next door? I mean, how do we do that? Help me with that, Chuck. Seriously. I mean, how do we do that? Is it okay to go against?
I mean, I guess it is. Well, I mean, is that, I mean, let's just kind of think about that. I mean, if somebody sells an item in a store, and somebody has one down the road and had the same item, and then 2 blocks away, somebody else sells that same item, and then and everybody's buying it, and they like it. Is that a proliferation? Is that really a proliferation of that item? I mean, is it?
Yeah, I do, and I don't know, and that's why I asked the question earlier. I was, seems to me just thinking outside the box. If the demand's there, is it a proliferation?
If it was a church, and they needed a special exception, I mean, are we going to deny a church that because there's a church across the street?
I mean, I don't know. We would need to if we're trying to judge these criteria literally. I mean, I don't know. I get it. But I'm honestly.
Well, I mean, all the criteria are all there for us to consider in scope with everything else. But I don't know that, you've got to say, well, I just can't get over. Well, I guess you could say that. But on the other hand, you can say that I feel like it overwhelmingly is supported by everything else. And I feel like that, and I think I could not argue, but in my mind, the fact that there is definitely a demand for it, and that there is nothing else basically on that block really like it, from the standpoint of being able to deliver service and with the ease of egress and ingress and the way they're gonna have it lit, and it'll just be a from my standpoint, a huge improvement there. So, I don't really even see it as the same thing. I don't see this as the same use as the discount cigarette shop that sells gas on the corner.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this overhead aerial view we're looking at, and I mean, 1.7 acres is a large in-town site, and to put a very well-run gas station here, think how much better it would be than what we're looking at. I mean, look at this aerial photo. So I guess, Chuck, what you're saying is let's look at all these specific criteria. Let's take them into consideration. But if just because we can't quite technically or literally meet every single one of them doesn't necessarily mean we have to turn the project down, because all the other evidence so overwhelmingly points in the direction of approval. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
And I think that's a good response. And that's what I'm looking for, is some sort of ammunition how to get around this number 5. And it concerned me from the very beginning. That's why I asked the question of the applicant. And I think you have a good response there. I'm just torn. I mean, I think we're both right. I really do. I mean, I think George is technically right. I mean, I don't know how we can argue that. And I think you're right too, that this is such an improvement for the area that we ought to welcome them. So I'm really on the fence with this one, more so than I've been in a long time.
Okay, well, let's do this. I'm going to make a motion, and we'll see what side of the fence you fall on.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion for approval. of this request. I can't remember which this is. Is this a variance now?
Well, remember we got two motions
Right.
here, two special exceptions.
Right. So we got to do this and then another one, correct?
That's right.
Correct.
Convenience store and gas station.
Are we taking testimony on both of these, Rachel?
No, we heard them together, but just two separate votes.
Okay. So we're voting now on the variance.
The special exception for the gasoline service station.
Sorry, special exception. I make a motion that we approve the special exception, subject to the criteria that have been the written criteria and the verbal criteria of the applicant have proven that they meet the criteria for special exception on this site, and that it would be subject to all of the agreements that they have made in regards to how they intend to develop the property, and all the comments that were included in staff's presentation. There she blows.
I'm still torn, but by just the absolute whisker, I'll second it.
Okay.
Hey, Gene, you know you can second a vote and not vote for it.
No.
Yeah, FYI, you can second a motion and then vote. You can second a motion and then vote against it. So.
Wow.
Yeah, new parliamentarian.
The second is not your vote. So.
Thank you, Jenna. I did not know that. Okay, I'm second.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Would you like?
How about I call roll?
Why don't you call roll, Rachel?
All right. Mr. Sally?
Aye.
Mr. Dinkins?
Aye.
Just blanked on everyone on the board. I'm sorry. Mr. Primus?
He's muted. Marcellus, you're muted.
No.
Ms. Stevens?
No.
Mr. Schaefer?
No.
Mr. Gregory?
Yay.
All right, it was 3-3, so the motion fails.
Do we need to make a motion on the special exception?
The only motion made is failed, so if someone wants to make another motion, they are welcome to.
Yeah, I move that we deny the special exception request for the gasoline service station.
Second.
Rachel, going to take roll, please.
Mr. Sally?
Nay.
Mr. Dinkins?
No.
Mr. Primus?
Aye.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Aye.
Mr. Gregory?
Nay.
Motion fails.
Okay. Thanks everybody for your input and time on that one. That was a tough one.
Yeah.
I think that was at least a well thought out decision.
Yeah.
So we need to go through the same process for the convenience store too. So, or another person can make a motion for the gas station. If a motion doesn't pass, then the case fails. So that's on the gasoline surface station. So it depends if someone wants to make another one or if someone wants to move on to the convenience store.
There were three.
Chuck, two motions have been made on the gasoline service station. Both failed.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. I am behind the 8 ball meeting.
That doesn't happen often to us, so it's confusing. I know.
George, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I move that we deny the special exception for the convenience store for this case.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rachel, will you take roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Sally?
No.
Mr. Dinkins?
No.
Mr. Primus?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Gregory?
No.
All right, motion fails.
Okay. Are we done?
You all can continue making motions all day, or
I don't want to make any more motions.
So the case has failed due to motions failing.
I may not ever make another motion again.
So we will move on to the next matter.
If no motion can be reached, the overall case fails.
If it's a tie.
Yeah, if it's a tie. There's no tiebreaker.
No process.
There's no tiebreaker. No.
The tiebreaker is Josh, wherever he is. That's the tiebreaker. Where's Josh?
He's not. He's not.
He's on vacation somewhere, I think.
Well, that was an interesting one.
All right, so we will move on to the next item. This is item number 5. It is 2020-0044, a special exception at 6335 North Main Street. The special exception to permit a drive-through establishment. I believe for a restaurant, I believe the applicant is on the line. They are welcome to unmute themselves and give us a rundown of their application.
This is Dan Creed with Heritage Engineering. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Michael Lever is representing the owner. I believe is also at the meeting. Rachel, if you could go one step further to the aerial. This is a standalone Domino's restaurant is what appears on the site plan. A carry-out restaurant only, no dine-in facilities. It is a carry-out pizza restaurant. No inside ordering and no ordering within the drive-through lane. The drive-through lane is intended for convenience of customers who want to pick up their pizza without coming into the store. And in this day and age, there's a lot more of that going on. If we can move forward to the last site plan, right?
This one?
One more, a little bit bigger scale. There you go. The drive-through lane is intended to provide some queuing, even though, again, there's no ordering, there's no waiting in line for your food to be prepared. But this can accommodate 3 or 4 cars if somebody's pizza isn't ready and they hadn't moved out of the way yet. Certainly some, another car can be queued without impacting traffic. Further, the throat length or the distance from the existing driveway that this will utilize from North Main is not decreased as a result of this. We certainly didn't want to impact queuing or traffic in that lane, and then the exit brings them out in a logical way back, or the drive-through exit back to the driveway. Also, pedestrian conflicts are completely separate, or pedestrian access is completely separate from the drive-through window. The 8 criteria are addressed in the application which you have. I'm glad to review them if you would like, or answer any questions.
So Dan, just to make for clarity there, this drive-through is only for call ahead or online orders, right?
That is correct. There is no order there's no order board, no order speaker, none of that.
Any questions from the board? Can we hear public? Is there any public comment, Rachel?
Sure. Erica, is there anyone on the line for this one?
No, there's nobody on the line and no messages.
All right, thank you.
No one on the line. I mean, I think that the written application is pretty clear. I don't see, really anything that violates. This violates. I will say that there are differences between uses, and to me, there's a huge difference between a drive-through window that is only for call ahead or online ordering, as opposed to one where you order online and as you go to the line to pick up your thing. But that's not defined in the city ordinance, so they're shown all the same. And to me, that's a good example of the difference between what they consider similar uses and the proliferation thereof. So I would like to make a motion to approve based on the written application and the testimony of the applicant today, subject to all comments and stipulations from staff in the application.
Second.
Can we have a first and a second? Yeah, let's just try this. Let's just try it out. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think the motion carries.
Motion passes. Yes. All right. We will move on to the next case. This is item number 6. It's for 2809 Rosewood Drive. There are 2 cases on this one, but we will discuss the variance first. This is a variance to the buffer transition yard for a mixed-use development. I believe Mr. Kaysen is on the line, and he's welcome to unmute himself and present his case.
Yes, ma'am, I am. Thank you so much. Thank you to the board. My name is Frank Kaysen with Kaysen Development Group.
We're familiar with you, Frank.
I have been before you. In fact, this property has also been before you very recently. So you guys are likely familiar with this project. It's the same project on Rosewood that we presented about 2 months ago. However, I think at that time we discussed the likely possibility or probability that we'd be coming back with what is before you the same site plan on the retail side. We got retail. We have the new multifamily apartments on the other side. This is almost identical with the exception that we have been making a lot of headway on closing Sloan Street with no opposition yet. In fact, we have signed affidavits that go to DOT. DOT's in favor and pushing things along, et cetera. So that's what you see. So this is for a special exception for a drive-through. Again, kind of reiterating what we said a couple months ago that the.
Hey Frank, this one's the landscaping one.
We are asking for a special exception for a a variance. Forgive me, Rachel.
It's okay.
Actually, I thought it would be easier and probably better for our engineer, Boyd Burnett, to speak to. He's on the call as well, but wanted to give an overview and a framework for the project. Hopefully, it's just a refresher, as you pointed out, we have been before you very recently. Boyd, are you there?
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
So just to kind of orient you with the project, in the upper left corner is the existing gym for the former church. And that gym building sits about 6 or 7 feet from the property line. And it's Frank's intention to redevelop that into retail parcels. And then plan south of that is a new building. And so we've got, and then if just to orient you on that lower left is the Rosewood Market. And so behind the Rosewood Market, there is a residential lot. And so that would be where the buffer variance would be from that point going north, up, and behind that existing gym building. So what we're proposing is a 6-foot brick wall behind the residence, along with some landscaping there. And then we're proposing an 8-foot wood fence behind the gym. And unfortunately, we can't plant that because per fire code, we've got to have exits out of these retail spaces. And so we have to have access for people to be able to get out of the building. So it's just kind of circumstances of where that building happens to fall on the property. And then we're also extending a small piece of a wall on the north side. There's an existing brick wall, and we're extending it, I don't know, 10 feet or something in order to meet that buffer requirement on that north side. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Frank, is there anything else you want to add?
No, sir. I'm just here for questions.
Is this, all right, so the gym building is the only part of this development that needs the landscaping?
Well, and the parcel, the residential parcel that's behind Rosewood Market.
It's a rental building,
rental house, but it's resident.
Behind the Rosewood Market, but that doesn't meet the setback requirements, or what?
Well, so no, it doesn't. And just to kind of orient you, the existing site is paved literally from property line to property line.
Right.
And so, we feel like we're, obviously improving that with, some redevelopment on the property.
Okay.
And a chain link fence right now. And some.
Right. So what is the variance? What explain to us where we're coming from here.
Sure. So from the residence, it would be with the brick wall, it would be a 15-foot buffer, and we're proposing 7.5, so cutting that in half. And the same with the. Actually, Rachel, I'm not entirely sure what the requirement is for an existing building that close to the property line with the gym. I know we're supposed to plan it. I know that, and we can't.
Yeah, you work with what you can.
Yeah, so it's the plantings behind that building would be the other variance.
But it's not really a variance for between the building and the property lines. It's just that little stretch behind.
Rachel, is there a landscaping requirement behind the existing building that's there already? I mean,
yes. So you have to try to put plantings in. I mean, if a buffer is required, obviously they can't pick a building up and move it, but you have to put in there what you can. So that's why they're varying some plantings, is just because there's going to be access back there so that you can exit the commercial building safely per building code.
So are those at grade, those 5x5 concrete slabs behind the?
Well, that's the problem, is the building is raised up about 2 feet. And so those are slabs. And so we're going to have steps to come down. And so that complicates the issue. So you can't just walk across those pads. You've got to be able to.
But to be clear, there's no variance.
So if there's a fire and somebody comes out the back exit with steps.
Well, we're going to have to interconnect 2 of those at that 2 foot higher level to send them around to one side or the other.
Gotcha.
That makes sense. We'll send one to the south and then 2 to the north.
So you basically have 2 feet between the existing fence and the edge of that 5x5 slab.
That, if that, maybe 1.5 feet.
Okay. Is there any other questions from the board? Can we hear public comment?
Erica, is anybody on the line for this one?
No, there's no callers, no comments.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I guess we go move into board discussion.
Chuck, I'd like to say a few things. We did have a really good discussion about this site a few months ago, whenever it was, so it is still fresh in my memory. And this is the first time I've seen this site plan, and I would just like to say, Hoyt, this is a very, very good, well thought out site plan. I think it's very impressive. I think the flow and maximizing your available space, I think this is good. And on that note, how that relates to this possible variance for the buffer transition yard, as we stated earlier, with regards to that existing building, it is what it is. Rachel said you can't pick it up and move the building, and that's correct. So in order for this site to flow and to line up so nicely like Hoyt's plan here does, we pretty much have to grant this special variance for this buffer yard requirement, or you wouldn't be able to have this building situated so nicely and the parking lot line up and mesh up like this. So I think the fact that they're putting in this tall brick wall and wood fence, hopefully that'll act as a buffer. And I guess I would just like to say that it is a very nice, well thought out site plan. And because of that fact, I think this buffer is totally appropriate. If you try to have this buffer and push this building way out into this parking lot, the site just doesn't work. So I think in this case, it is the minimum necessary. Very good site plan, Hoyt. It's impressive.
Any other comments? If I don't hear any, so I'll make a motion that we approve this request for a variance based on the testimony we've heard today, and also the written application and subject to all comments and stipulations by staff.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
All right.
All right. The next one. Same address, 2809 Rosewood Drive. This is the special exception to permit a drive-through establishment. And I provided the board a letter from the Shores. I think it was yesterday. So that is the only letter received after publishing of packets. So that has been shared with the board.
Right.
To be respectful of your time, I could just open it up for questions on this since we've gone into a lot of discussion and details on this plan, but the simple overview is this is a request for a drive-through special exception.
So is there do you have a tenant?
So we have we do have a specific tenant that we have been dealing with who we do not have a finalized deal with. It is not one that is included in the list of that the Shores sent. If y'all had a chance to look at that, that they are not in favor of, and it is a high-end user that feel will be a great complement to this development as well as the Rosewood corridor.
But you can't. That sounds like you can't share who the user is.
Unfortunately, not. I wish it had moved quick enough to where we could, but it has.
Frank, it might be helpful to describe the building, and you don't have to describe the tenant, but the two-story, the apartments, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And also, just to clarify, it is an eating establishment, so I will put that out there too. I forgot to say that when I introduced the case. Drive-through for an eating establishment. So move. Okay. Sorry, Frank.
Yeah. Yeah. So the building is currently designed as a little over 8,000 square feet, the second in this structure. So we're fairly far along in the design here, and it's it looks very nice and would also provide for 2 tenants on the first floor. So 2 tenants on the first floor here, likely 2 tenants in the back building as well.
And if I could point out one more thing for the board, if you'll notice, the access to the drive-through is all the way to the rear of the property, and that's very intentional, that we didn't have a cut-through that went directly to the drive-through, but you had to go basically to the dumpster to the end of Sloan Street and then hang a left to provide additional stacking space, for sure that would be necessary during the that was very intentional the way we laid that parking lot out.
I have a question related to that. So the last time we considered this case when we were looking at the variances related to parking, the site plan included Sloan Street dying into Rosewood Drive. So this site plan is drawn showing that Sloan Street is going to be discontinued. Is there a chance that will not happen?
I'll take that. Yes, there is a chance that will not happen. Yes.
How are we so I have a question for Rachel. So how are we to consider this when, we just heard testimony that the entrance to the drive-through is sort of deep into the site, and that's true when you think about this as a parking lot that connects 3 buildings on sort of what is a combined site. That's very different than if the Sloan Street remained, and depending on where the curb cuts were to allow access into the parking lot adjacent to the existing gym and the new 2-story building with a drive-through. How are we to consider this when a critical component of the site plan may change?
Well, when this case initially came to you all, I had advised members of the board, and I had spoken with Mr. Kaysen about how, because Sloan Street was DOT, we could not make that conditions of approval with the multifamily or with the shared parking arrangement. They also hadn't begun really the process at that point. They were in talks and looking into the process. They are further along in the process now, and because it is part of the site plan and proposal for the drive-through stacking that has come before you, it is now open up to where if an approval is made, it could potentially be contingent on this site plan happening. So if something happens and Sloan Street does not end up being closed in this way, the matter would have to come back before you all.
Okay, thank you.
To review again at that time based on how the site plan shifts.
Okay.
I can clarify that a little bit. I had some discussions with DOT about it even before we were talking about taking over Sloan Street, and Tyler Clark said that if we had a drive-through, the driveway would need to be in that location towards the rear. So regardless of if Sloan Street is a road or it's part of development, that would remain a kind of the quote-unquote driveway location in that rear, if that helps the matter.
No, it does help. I'm just saying in the way that we have to think about whether it has an adverse impact on traffic, it isn't negligible that one proposal is a parking lot and another is a through street. I mean, those aren't the same in how we think about traffic.
Great point. Okay. Are there any other questions? Any other discussion? Okay. I don't hear anything, so I'm going to, what's that?
Do you want me to check on public input first, or were you about to ask?
Oh, I thought we already did. I'm sorry.
We did on the first one. Erica had said that there was no one on the line, but I just want to double check with her because that was on the variance. So just to make sure no one new raised their hand. It's okay. Erica, did anyone new jump on?
No, there's no callers.
Okay.
No messages.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Okay, so this is a kind of a tricky one because it's kind of the fast food concept is sort of, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the letter from Adam Shore, and it's kind of like, well, some people might think Chipotle is a fast food, or McAllister is a fast food, or Dunkin' Donuts a fast food, yet they're not fast food based on this criteria. So I don't want to, I want Frank to be in a position where he needs to honor his agreement with the Shores if we pass this.
I do want to just to reference that, Chuck. I would advise against limiting any approvals to specific uses. That was just to make you all aware and privy to that agreement, but we as a board cannot use those private agreements in our approvals or denials. So it was more just to give you all notice because it was submitted from a member of the public.
Right.
Yeah, Rachel, I had a question about that too, because I don't see a difference in Dunkin' Donuts and Bojangles. So we, in their agreement.
Yeah, and in our ordinance, it's just a drive-through for an eating establishment. So any eating establishment that would be permitted in that district is what would be permitted by zoning. So zoning does not enforce private agreements. So we would be unable to enforce such a condition. So again, that was just because it was submitted as part of the record. I did want to at least share it with you all to make you aware.
Okay.
Can we make a motion?
Yes, we can.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this special exception with the given site plan, subject to staff comments.
Okay, so what I heard was that it's contingent upon the site plan as drawn. Is that right?
Yeah, and I believe Rachel confirmed that if the site plan changes, they would have to come back. Correct, okay. Rachel?
Guys, you have mentioned you have made your motion to approve with site plan as it is submitted. Then yes, if that changed, it would be a substantial enough change to where you all would have an opportunity to review again.
I second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, I think we got that one.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, so the next two cases, Mr. Dinkins has recused himself. So we have item.
Yeah, and Rachel, I want to make a comment.
Okay.
I'm not affiliated with any of these cases directly, and these aren't my clients, but two folks in my firm do represent the property owners of these cases. So I want to make y'all aware, and if anyone has any issues, just let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. All right, the next item on the agenda is item number 8. This is case 2020-0048. It is a special exception for 919 Catawba Street and 312 and 318 Lincoln Street. This is a special exception to permit a multifamily use within a planned development district. This is a district that we do not see very often. There's a few parcels remaining, especially around Catawba and Whaley. It was created just to allow certain uses such as residential with review from the board in those heavy industrial districts. As you can see, this is an M2 district, so with a special exception, residential could potentially be allowed, whereas it is not permitted in the base zoning district. But it is an overlay district that does not go to the DDRC, so it doesn't have design guidelines per se. So that's why what was submitted to you all in the packet was so in-depth. You all are able to ask more questions about all of those submissions that came to you all, such as the service area, parking, location and size of buildings, ingress and egress, signs, banners, flags, open space, trees and other plantings in urban areas, architectural plans and elevations, as well as perspective drawings. So it does give you a little more say into those matters. So I will let the applicant, I believe they are on the call. They're welcome to jump in and give us a rundown of their case.
Rachel, this is Bob Fuller. Am I still on audio with you?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. This is Bob Fuller. I'm a lawyer here in Columbia, and I'm representing today the applicant on both of these cases. They are related, obviously, one to the other. The Dunnerstein company out of Houston, Texas, is the primary applicant on these propositions. They are non-residents of the Columbia area, but they are not new to Columbia. They have developed here on a number of occasions before. This is a new project in the Whaley Street, Olympia vicinity, and is, as Rachel has indicated to you, coming to you because it is a residential project in an M2 district, which requires a special exception under the existing ordinance. Presenting today basically will be the Dunnerstein Company's representatives, Adam Beck and Curtis Burnett. I would advise you at the same time that the local representation project engineers are Cox and Dinkins with Stanford Dinkins, and the Kimley Horn traffic consulting firm in Columbia with Joe Robertson in attendance. We do have available on the meeting architectural representatives and landscaping and other disciplines, so that if there are questions about either of the propositions, the special exception first and later the variance request, there would be people with knowledge to answer those things. So in the interest of time and to move on, I would introduce to you now Adam Beck, who is the project manager of this proposal from Houston and the Dunnerstein organization. And he will run through specifically the application, the special exception application, and the classifications of ordinance criteria that are to be met. And after the conclusion of the presentation, all of the team members would be available, ready, and to answer any questions that may come from the board. So I would turn you over to Adam Beck to make the presentation.
Thank you, Bobby. Really appreciate it. And afternoon, members of the board. Again, appreciate your time today. And again, we probably have a lot to cover here, so I'll dive right into it. First off, I'd like to start and just kind of give a quick overview of our company. I work for the Dinnerstein Companies, which is based here in Houston, Texas. We're a multifamily development company with an internal general contractor and also self-manage all of our properties. We've built about 75,000 units over our life. We've been around since 1955, and it's actually a family-owned and operated company. We're on the third generation of the family, and I've kind of looked in Columbia previously. And actually, had done 3 or 4 previous developments over the last probably 15 years. Actually, I don't know if they were specifically within the city of Columbia, but in and around the city of Columbia. And so, specifically to this site, we are looking to propose building a 5-story conventional multifamily development that will include 279 units and about 543 parking spaces located on 919 Catawba Street. It's about 4 acres. Again, it's bordered by the southern street is Catawba Street, and then I guess the western border is Lincoln Street. Where, I guess the current existing use is, light industrial, 2 buildings. It's currently improved with Richland Industrial, which I guess the current owner, Mike Solon, is owned for, and his family, I think, for over 20 plus years. Within our development, we are proposing kind of more of an urban pedestrian walkable feel, and believe this will hopefully provide a gateway connect kind of downtown Columbia to other parts of Southern Columbia and the Granby and Olympia neighborhoods. Within this, it will be, all self-contained is a good way to put it. So we'll have a precast parking garage. The units will wrap the garage. And the garage will only be seen from, the northern border, which is the railroad, and then a wetland stream to the to the east. And along with that, we will have a self-enclosed 2 courtyards. One will be improved with a pool. The other will be improved with other amenities. And the unit mix will consist of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. And I guess just to clarify, as I'm sure some people are thinking, given the location, if we're seeking student housing zoning, we're not. This will be a dedicated for the kind of what we believe is a shortage of conventional units and conventional apartments within Columbia, South Carolina. We think it'll be an overall benefit to the surrounding area, given kind of the overall density, height, and overall appeal. We're trying to design it to fit in architecturally with the kind of modern industrial look of the surrounding properties. And again, and we've already actually completed, I think, a traffic study as well, which we can address at a different point. And also, I'd like to note, as part of the kind of M2 zoning with the PD overlay and going for the special exception, and you guys know this better than I do, I think the current code, if or when it goes into effect, I think would this site plan would conform with what is currently being proposed for this site. And then kind of, again, I thank you, Rachel, for going to this slide. This was going to be my first direction to the board. You can see kind of what we're proposing here. Again, so given kind of the site constraints with the wetland buffer and wetlands on the right side of the kind of page right, and then railroad on kind of the page top, we have a fire lane and access to the garage that surrounds the site. And then we'll have obviously pedestrian access. As part of this too, we've been in direct communication with city staff to potentially extend the Three Rivers Greenway path down Lincoln Street. And we've also met with the Mill District Alliance and proposed our project with them and have their support. And then as well as talked with Bill Kirkland and Ed Walton at the university and made them aware of the project. They, again, didn't oppose or support the project. But I know, again, there's been other kind of proposals for this site in previous years that you guys are probably very, very much more aware of than I am. Then developers have, again, been kind of unsuccessful. But at that, again, I could probably continue to talk, but I feel like we've want to open the floor to the board to answer any questions or concerns you guys may have.
I don't hear any questions. can we see if there's any public input? Rachel?
Erica, is there anybody waiting on the phone or any letters that have come in?
No callers, no letters.
Okay.
So just so I'm clear, then that the variance is off of Pava Street.
It'll be off of both Catawba and Lincoln Street. So there's I guess a front yard and then a secondary front yard setback buffer that, again, we are requesting variance to a 0 setback line to address the wetlands on the page right of the plans.
And that's the area in green that's kind of
yes, kind of undeveloped, kind of, yeah, it'll be improved with landscaping, but yes.
Can you circle that on the Rachel? Can you circle the wetlands area that we're talking about on the screen?
Chuck, this is Sanford Dinkins.
Got it.
But let me emphasize that is an established wetland quality buffer by the city of Columbia, so we are not imposing to encroach upon it. It's existing and it's there and it's established.
Right.
And just to clarify, I had introduced just the special exception for the residential use. We have merged into talking about the variance too. So I guess we can just talk about both together. That's fine. But yes, it was the special exception to permit the multifamily use and the variance to the front and secondary front yard setback requirements. And the M2, so that was where some of the wetland discussion came in. So, but just a note, it will be 2 separate motions.
So it's the second motion is a variance for multifamily in an M2 zoning. That's what I'm hearing.
First is the special exception to permit the multifamily use, and then a variance to the setbacks. This is the second.
Mr. Chairman, this is Bob Fuller again. We did drift into discussion about the variance, and I just wanted to call to your attention the same team of people is available to discuss both of them, all of the issues and the connectivity of it. So it's perfectly fine to consider them together, and then you do the voting you need to. But
we did we have public comment? Yeah.
There was no one on the phone when I initially asked. Since we've kind of dabbled in the variance now, I'll double check with Erica just to confirm again if there's anyone waiting.
Okay.
No, there's nobody on the phone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Move into board discussion. I think we can discuss all of this together and then we'll vote on them separately. If that's okay with everybody. I looked at the traffic study. I do have one question. I looked at the traffic study and it didn't mention anything about, there's 2 grade crossings on either side of this property. Is there, did y'all look at what the train traffic was like and so on and so forth, and whether there's any other, is that part of your study of this site? You can elaborate on a little bit. If not,
Joe, are you on the phone? No.
Mr. Chairman, we were expecting Joe Robertson of Kimley Horn to be on the phone. They have.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, my microphone settings were off a little bit. Sorry about that.
No worries.
We have not looked into railroad crossings yet to this point. As this project moves forward, we will be coordinating with the city traffic engineer and city staff on the elements of a more detailed traffic study. and that could certainly be included as part of that, since it is a valid safety concern.
Yes, and just to jump in on that, Chuck, this will have to go for Planning Commission for formal site plan review, just because it's more than 5 residential units. So, and I did share just a letter with you and the applicants today from USC. They had kind of inquired the same just about the railroad crossings. So the applicant is definitely aware of that to look into.
Yeah, I'm really pretty keenly aware of that site. I actually sold that site to Mike Sullivan's dad, Harry Sullivan's, back in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
He actually, he had it that Richland Wholesale was actually on Lady Street, where the what is it, it's a Wings and Ale now, some kind of Wings and Ale. That he was doing well, and I've sold him that site. And one of the things we were looking at was access and concern about that. But Catawba Street, you know, which goes directly to that. If a train is there, you can still go down Park Street or Lincoln Street to Whaley Street and get across at a stoplight, and there's a below grade crossing right there as well. So you know, it looks like it's right up against that, but it's not at all cut off by the railroad tracks by any means. There's plenty of ways to get in and out of that property from that different sidings. So I think it's definitely something that I wanted to make a note about. I think that the Whaley Street below you know, bridge really is a big problem solver for that whole area right there. Any other comments from the board? All right. So in that case, I'll make a motion that we approve this request for a variance. Let's go with the variance first. Let's do the special exception. That was the first one, right?
Yes, the special exception for the use.
Request for a special exception for multifamily in an M2 district based on the written application and the testimony that we've heard today, subject to all stipulations and comments by staff.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? Okay. So that's, I think that carries the special exception, and now the variance for the setback. I'd also like to make a motion that we approve the request for a variance based on the written application and verbal testimony today, subject to all comments and stipulations of staff.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. 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 All opposed? Is anyone opposed? Okay. Hear none.
Thank you very much, members of the board. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. With that, there is no other business unless anyone has anything to discuss. You all are welcome to move to adjourn.
Thanks. I honestly thought we might actually stay until 8, and I saw the meeting was from 4 to 8, but getting off at 6 makes me feel good. I think you just did that, Rachel, so that we would feel good by only having to stay here until 6:15.
I do it just in case.
Yeah.
Over delivering.
Well, everybody, I'm gonna, because this might be my last meeting, so I'm assuming that there'll be somebody that'll come on the board between now and October. So I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn, and I'm also gonna make a comment that I've really, really enjoyed being on this board with each and every one of you, and also with the staff over the years. It's just been fantastic, and I appreciate everything that y'all have done. And I also want to say that I really do highly respect everybody on this board. I think y'all are thinkers, and y'all, everybody has their own mindset here, and I like that. And so, I think you've got a good board. I hope y'all get 2 more great people to come on board. So that we adjourn.
Thank you, Chuck.
Chuck, thank you for your leadership, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
You've done a fantastic job over the years, Chuck. It's been a pleasure to serve with you.
Yeah.
And I'll let you know if we need you in October. The longest one.
Was that a second on the motion?
A second.
Second.
Thanks. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are officially adjourned. Have a great Labor Day weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, stay safe.
You too.
All right. Take care.
See y'all.
Stay safe.